Humans of Winnipeg,
that one.
visiting guests, please welcome Jason Snell.
Thank you. One of the things we'll be doing tonight is normally I video record my own just on a little iPhone, my own performances, but we have this beautiful, wonderful camera and we're using tonight. So we're going to try to keep a clear path between the camera and the stage. Just be aware of that. It's an honor to be here. I'm sad that the festival cut short. I think a pandemic is a good reason to have a show canceled. I was playing a techno show in France a few years ago, and the whole night was going great. I was going to be the headliner, and 30 seconds into my set, the power for the whole party got cut. And after about 10 minutes of investigation, they found some kid was high, and he jumped up and down on the generator because he didn't like the noise it was making. So that's not a good reason to have a show canceled. Pandemic is a good. So you can't beat that. So it's great that this was a part of the schedule anyways, and it's just really important for me to be able to share this technology and this experience with all of you. What I'll be doing tonight, I'll just talk about a real simple signal path so you understand what you're seeing, and then I'll perform 3 separate songs, so I'll load different sound kits in between. I'll take off the Eeg and load the new kit, and I'll do that 3 times. And then if anyone has questions, people usually are curious about some of the details of how it works, but in general what will happen is this is a Eeg Headband. It's a commercially available by the product is called Muse, M-U-S-E, and it's sold with a meditation app. And originally they had an open door to its code, so myself as a third-party developer could hack into it and grab the data coming off my brain without having to use their app. So what I did is I created my own app to grab the electricity from my brain and run it through a series of algorithms to make music. And technically what is being output, so this goes into the app, technically what's being output out of the iPhone is Midi. Does anyone not know what Midi is? Great. Midi is a language, it's musical instrument digital interface, and it's a language that allows like synthesizers to talk to drum machines, to talk to samplers, and it can pass information about notes and different types of changes to any knob that you see on a synthesizer could be changed with this Midi language without touching it. And so essentially what I'm doing is, with this system, sort of like telekinesis, I can play a synthesizer without touching it, just through thought and composing in my brain. This system that I'm playing off of tonight will be Ableton, which is a music software. So the MIDI is running into the computer, and then an audio cable is running out of the computer. You will hear the sound. And behind me is the projection. So this will be the live projection of my brain waves, and you'll see 5 different waves, and they're a different color. And the behavior of those waves, moment to moment, is what's composing the music.
Is this your interface, your app interface, or is this?
Yep. Yep.
That we're seeing?
Yep, I created this.
Okay.
Yep. I will get started. I'm loading the different kits, essentially it's like loading in, kind of like a drum kit, a piano, and then like moving that aside and bringing in like a cello and a violin and then moving that aside. Because MIDI is just music information, it can be pointed towards any instrument, so what I'm doing is I'm switching instruments. anyone have any questions?
I'd like 50.
Let me get the better light on, so.
I'll just ask a couple though.
Sure. Let me get the light on.
Man.
There we go. What's your first question?
Yeah, not ironic, but like that blew my mind. First question. Is there any correlation between your heart and your brain?
With this particular system, no. I'm developing one with an Apple Watch that connects into it as well, where I can use heart rate for tempo. But this one,
I'm not, this particular build is, the term that's come up is biomorphic, so it's the shape of thought. It's not on a certain time signature or a certain tempo. And so I'm not adjusting the tempo because all the notes are being inserted live.
Okay.
I did have previous versions that were a 4/4 beat, and the overall level of activity of the brain was setting the tempo, whether I was feeling more active and stressed or relaxed and meditative, I would change the tempo.
I'm wondering like what you're thinking about within the 3 different compositions. Like, is one, are you like thinking more peacefully, another one you're thinking more aggressively, or can you explain that?
When, at any point, there's electricity coming off my brain. And the more I use this, essentially it's a new instrument. So it's like a keyboard or a guitar, and I'm learning to manipulate my brain to compose. And what happens with the different kits is that the sounds are already set in the kit in terms of the synthesizers are chosen in the kit. Their overall texture and treatment and density is what I'm composing live. And what happens is, as the music is playing, it's influencing my brain. So there's a biofeedback loop. And one of my favorite parts of the project is my brain gets to simultaneously create and perceive at the same time. Whereas in the past, when I was performing, that moment of creating with my brain happened alone in the studio. And I was making music and then recording it. And then later, when I'm in a performance situation, my brain is just perceiving it because it already made it. And so that's my favorite part of this project, is that I can take that moment of creation that happens alone in the studio and bring it to this performance moment where I'm perceiving it just as everyone else in the room is at the same time. So the sounds will then influence the electricity in my brain. So the more aggressive sounds will make my brain more agitated or active or stimulated, more neutral term, which then will aggravate that brainwave more, which will then jack up those sounds more.
Right.
And that's the biofeedback that happens. Whereas if I'm feeling meditative or calm, then some of the bassier notes. So I map the sounds to emulate what I'm feeling. So if I'm feeling calm and meditative, I start hearing bassier sounds and dreamier sounds, like I'm diving into the subconscious. So as my brain then hears that, I'm able to then go deeper. So I've meditated for a long time, and when I meditate, I can go down only so far, in a normal meditation, or if it's kind of an activating meditation, I only can go so far up. What's been powerful about this system is if I'm using it and I meditate, and then the music follows me, I can then go deeper. And so I can ladder, step up or down. And so I've, using this system, this last summer I was doing a performance, which it was an hour-long performance. And about 25 minutes into it, I got to this really activating meditation. I hadn't had that intensive a meditative experience in years. And this system allowed me to ladder step up into that state where it was the first time I ever done a performance where I just felt out because I was feeling so overwhelmed by the sensation of that meditation. Yes, please.
You're going to try doing yoga at the same time?
I've tried different things. The one limitation of this EEG is it's not good with a lot of movement. I put it on an opera singer about 6 months ago, and as she was singing, her forehead, and we just kept losing the signal. And what happens is all the bars just go flat because the actual sensors are slipping. I have taken a nap on it, and it was so much fun. What was interesting about that, and it reminded me of a Shavasana. So as I was napping, I relaxed, and how it's the dreams start to creep in, where you're not full on dreaming, but it's just like, if I'm conscious of it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird, and then keep going. So when those pre-dreams start to happen, a sound would trigger. And then I remembered, oh, I'm hooked up to an EEG to a music system. And so it became this lifeline back to consciousness, where I was able to follow that lifeline and go deeper and deeper into a pre-dream state and feel connected still. And then I drifted off and I was gone and I stopped hearing the music. But it was interesting to be able to consciously have that anchor back to the waking world through the sounds that were changing as I was getting more and more complex dreams.
So you're saying you could do an album in your sleep?
I could do it now, but
really
if I hit
interested in
record,
that.
yes,
Yeah,
I can hit
would
record.
be super. I love this technology. I'm also wondering about because we mentioned the contact points
Yes.
and needing to have either stickies or larger ones for movement, but also thinking about the possibility of hooking it up to a VR system as well.
Sure.
And I would love
On the helmet itself,
Yeah.
No, that would be a good integration. And then the brain could form the VR content.
Yeah, and you
So
could have
that's
audio and
so
contact.
similar to a dream.
Yeah, and I would be really interested to see the possibilities of using that for therapy, but also for just playing around with how you think and maybe even how you come back to it over time. Do you always in the same place? Are you always in the same place, or are you changing? I don't know, just want to play with this.
Yeah. No, it's really useful information about the brain because it's externalizing it. One of the things about this system is a term for it that I've come across. So the term psychedelic doesn't have to do with hallucinations. If you break down the translations, the psych part is just mind or consciousness. And delic is from Greek delia, which is just to manifest or reveal. So this system is an electro-psychedelic. It's taking the brain and it's externalizing it into sound and into visual where I can perceive it and other people can perceive it. And by externalizing it, it's like having a really complex idea or thought and being like, how's that going to work? And then once I write it on paper, I'm like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. And so to externalize something that's invisible and internal, I'm learning a lot more about it.
Also, a side question.
Sure.
Were you inspired? Did you watch anime? Did you watch the Sharon Apple concert?
No,
Okay,
I
because it's
didn't.
the same idea where the singer wears a headset
Okay.
and then controls the music through her mind.
Oh, that's great.
And it's a concert. It's on a whole concert. Like that. That's why I was like, did you watch that? Because that made me want to do it.
What year did it come out?
1994.
I'll look for that.
Watch it. It's beautiful.
I wish I stole that idea from anime.
Okay.
That's a good leading question. How would I come up with it? So I had this whole system was based on a dream I had in 2017. And in the dream, the idea came up of making music based on DNA sequences. And I woke up from the dream and I wrote it down and I looked up on NIH, the National Institute of Health in the US. And it had the DNA charts that I was thinking of in the dream. So I started to screenshot those and then transcribe them into Midi notes in Ableton and then make music sequences from human DNA sessions. And the idea of making music based on the body and the fundamental building blocks of the body. And about 6 weeks later, I was just on Instagram and saw an ad for this EEG set. I was like, oh, that'd be amazing to play DNA sequences with my mind. And then I got the EEG and did a prototype and was able to play a keyboard note with my brain. And since then it evolved into full composition instead of just performing with my brain, composing with my brain. Yes?
So I have a question, just a more technical one, because
Yeah.
I also build knives. Are you scaling your data? So it's nerdy, but are you scaling
Sure.
your data? Is every track kind of scaled differently depending, like, do you go in with a like a idea, like what kind of like, maybe for this one track, you want these brainwaves to be like at triple the magnitude, so it creates this bassier or thicker sound, or more pointillistic sound, or like, is your data scaled?
I do scale it, not specifically to the dBs, but what I'm doing, the decibel levels,
Yeah, like maybe another quality parameter or something like
what I'm doing is percentages.
that. Okay, cool.
Because one of my concerns with this particular project was, if I'm in the studio building all of it, that's not what my brain's gonna be doing when I'm in a room with people actually watching me. So, right from the beginning, I started looking at percentages and relational percentages between the different waves.
Is it linear? Is your, like the percentage is it a linear correlation to that, or is it?
To the output,
Sometimes you like do logarithmic scaling or like.
the newer system is gonna have logarithmic scaling. This one is a baseline of 0.
Okay.
So there are 6 sensors, and not summing, I'm summing the spatial sensors. Each sensor has all 5 brainwaves, and so each brainwave, so alpha is a sum of alpha from the 6 spatial sensors, and then delta is the, and so the new system, I'm gonna be doing more with spatial data, and then also logarithmic, where it can dive below 0.
Right.
And making adjustments based on that.
I have a second question.
Yes,
Just.
did we lose anyone? Everyone's down with logarithms?
The second question is just like, as a performance artist, like, I know with movement it's no good, but have you ever done performances where you had other people interact with you and touch you, and then you respond to them in a way, like where it's a little bit more interactive, where people are allowed to touch you,
Sure.
or interact with you, or I don't know, irritate you, or
Sure.
do something to you that makes you interact with the with the audience a little bit more. Have you ever tried that?
I haven't yet, but one of the ideas I'm gonna start working on, actually with a couple of people from DeepMind in Toronto, is having multiple people with EEGs, and then having them interact and seeing if they can sync up their brain waves, and harmonize between the two of them. And then once we get 2, try adding 3, 4. I think they have up to, 60 headsets. So we'll start with 2 people and see if we can get up to 60 people and see what sort of sounds come up from collective brain. Any other questions?
When's the album coming out?
What's interesting about this project is I haven't been treating it as a music project. You know, I produced techno for over 20 years, and always the end result was an album. And this one feels so much more experiential. And so I video record all of them and then record the audio off of each of the projects. But so far, an album hasn't made sense yet.
Well, I just want to say that, I mean, I've never done anything, but I'm like it was just, I can't explain it. I had my eyes closed and my whole body was just like, as a creative person, I don't know, it, like I had goosebumps, so tuned in, and just the beauty of the lines and the rhythm that happens, and like this catapulting, like this coming from the center, and this male-female kind of imagery that comes out of it is just outstanding.
Great. Just curious, show of hands, who closed their eyes at some point during the performance? I find that that's fairly common, and I don't know if it's just modeling where I'm closing my eyes, but it's an interesting experience that I have my eyes closed and I'm creating these sounds and I'm hearing those sounds, and it's like from my psyche to yours. You know, it's going into your psyche through your ears, and you're experiencing a closed, quiet internal world. Maybe not quiet, but internal world as well.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
it's amazing.
Great. Yes, in the back.
Will you do another piece today?
Those are the kits I have. I would have to have my physical synthesizer to do more of them. And
Some people were late getting here, that's why.
I want to be fair to the next performer, so we did video record all of it. So I don't want to take up too much of the performance time tonight.
So are these available on the website?
Yeah, primaryassembly.com, and then there's a link to all the performances and all the lectures I've given, so all that information is there.
How much control do you have over like your individual brain waves? Like I know that you can train, people can train to have control. Do you exercise a degree of control?
Yeah, the ones that I have the most control over are the red one and the blue one, so it's alpha and delta. And alpha is when I go into a meditative state where if I listen to the actual music, it increases my alpha. So that's my anchor. If I get lost, I can just come back to the actual sound. And then delta is stimulation and stress and activation. So something as simple as opening my eyes and kind of looking at the system or being aware of the room. The other ones that have been more interesting that I've seen people control in different ways as I've tested the system on different people, and I've learned is beta and gamma. So some people can kind of move into a higher vibration of thought, and the beta and gamma goes up. The opera singer I put it on, when she was singing, her beta and gamma were absolutely at the top of the charts, and I think had to do with her circular breathing as an opera singer, and she was singing in Italian and German, so her brain was processing a different language. Whereas the electronic music without vocals, delta and alpha seem to be the primary composers, and so that's the relational percentage that I mentioned is between alpha and delta. Looking at them, so it's in a way it's what percent am I into conscious, and then into subconscious, then conscious, and those two vacillate during performance, and that's where I have the most triggers, is surfing in between consciousness and subconscious, in a very general term, subconscious. But I'm learning more every time I use it. It's a new instrument, so I'm learning more. So it's like learning a new string on a guitar. It's like, oh, that's how that one sounds.
Right. Yeah.
Anything else? Any questions? All right, well, thank you. I appreciate it.